Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for what might be the most extraordinary journey we've ever taken into a single source.
It's a pretty wild one.
It really is. We're diving into Dan Sherman's book, Above Black, Project Preserve Destiny. And, he presents this as nonfiction. This is his authentic first-level account of alien contact and a massive government cover-up.
And he's very clear on this point. He says he wrote it not to entertain, but explicitly to inform. That distinction is, I think, the critical starting point.
Right, because when you look at who Dan Sherman was, he wasn't just some random guy.
Not at all. He was an electronic intelligence specialist, an ELINT analyst for the U.S. Air Force, and he was working for the National Security Agency, the NSA. This whole story is about how he was pulled from that life for a program. Well, a program that operates beyond any classification level we're supposed to know about.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack what happened when he was brought in as an intuitive communicator, or an IC, for something called Project Preserve Destiny.
The claims are just. They're staggering. We're talking about a secret government project, PPD, that allegedly practiced genetic management.
Genetic management? You mean like breeding people for a purpose?
Essentially, yes. Cultivating specific human offspring for decades with the sole purpose of communicating with the Greys. It really forces you to confront this idea that a shadow government might have decided that the only way to safeguard humanity's future was engineered telepathy.
So let's jump right in. Let's go to the beginning, the recruitment. Because it starts in such a mundane way.
Totally normal. Sherman gets called to the NSA facility just outside Washington, D.C. He thinks he's just there for an intermediate ELINT class.
Just another day at the office.
Exactly. But almost immediately, an officer, Captain White, pulls him aside for this very unusual, very private meeting.
And this is where his normal career path just completely derails.
It slams into the extraordinary. Captain White opens up by telling Sherman about his own genetic history. He tells him his mother was visited by aliens, by the Greys, back in 1960 for tests.
Wait, visited in 1960?
And then again in 1963 for a very specific genetic procedure, while Sherman himself was still in the womb.
So the government, or this project, is claiming they already had this documented. This wasn't something they just discovered.
That's the chilling part. It was proactive. It was long-term. Sherman was told that his ability, his intuitive communication, his telepathy, it wasn't some random mutation. It was the direct result of that procedure.
And Project Preserve Destiny was already up and running by him.
Fully operational by 1963. The whole point was to cultivate these IC abilities in human children to talk to the Greys. It's managed genetic destiny.
But why? What was the reason for this insane multi-decade plan?
It all comes down to a future catastrophe. Captain White told him these IC abilities would become critical in a future where, and this is a direct quote, all electromagnetic communications will be rendered useless.
So it's not about war, not about spying on another country.
No, this is about survival. PPD was designed to ensure humanity could still communicate after a total collapse of our electronic infrastructure. The threat they were planning for was fundamental, maybe geological, maybe atmospheric, something huge.
Wow. If the threat is that big, the secrecy needed to hide the project must have been just as massive. Let's talk about that, the architecture of the secrecy.
Well, the NSA is already called the Puzzle Palace for a reason, but the security Sherman describes to get into the training facility it's straight out of science fiction.
More than just guards and key cards, I take it.
Oh, way beyond that. He talks about retinal scanners, these metal plates shaped like a hand that read not just fingerprints, but maybe heat signatures, and then single-button elevators that just go deep, deep underground. It creates this atmosphere of total control.
And that control extended to how they hid the project from everyone, even Congress. They called it the onion effect.
Right, the onion effect. It's this brilliant, if terrifying, philosophy of compartmentalization.
Now, how does it work?
Okay, so think about the regular classification system. You have unclassified, then FOUO for official use only, that's like level 5. Then you go up to secret, top secret levels 4 and 3.
Sure, but high-level government officials, oversight committees, they can get access to that information.
Exactly. That's the problem they had to solve. So they create more layers to the onion. Level 2 are the black missions. These are your super secret, high-stakes military or intel ops, but they're not alien-related.
And at the very center of the onion.
At the core, that's level 1. The gray missions or slant missions, that's Project Preserve Destiny. And here's the rule. Every single Level 1 project must be hidden by an ongoing Level 2 black mission.
That is bureaucratic genius.
Right.
Or maybe madness.
It's both. If some curious senator starts digging into strange budget lines for PPD, they don't find aliens, they get steered to the Level 2 cover mission.
And they get a top-secret briefing, feel like they've done their job, and they stop digging.
Precisely. They never, ever reach the core. And this whole system extends to the people, too. Sherman was first level. He knew about the Greys. But all the support staff, the pilots, the guards, everyone, they were second level. They thought they were just working on a normal, if secret, military project.
That level of isolation, it leads us right into his training. It sounds completely alienating.
It was. He's driven every day in a van with blacked-out windows. He called the driver, Casper the friendly van driver, to this underground facility. He has a classmate, but they're forbidden from ever speaking or even making eye contact.
The psychological pressure must have been immense. And on top of that, they start giving him medicine.
Yes, the pills. He had to take 2 every day from this shiny gray bottle. They just told him it was to facilitate abilities.
And they never told him what was in them.
Never, just that they were harmless. But imagine you've just been told you're genetically altered in the womb, and now you have to take mystery pills. The distrust would be immediate.
Of course. And the training itself was just as bizarre. This sin wave flattening.
Right, so he's staring at a computer screen showing us sin waves, and he has to mentally hum these specific tones.
And what's the goal?
The goal is to use his mind, his will, to literally flatten that wave on the screen. He said success felt like an audible click inside his mind.
So the tones weren't the power source. They were like a key.
Exactly. Sherman realized the tones were just a bridge. They were a tool to help him unlock and control what his mind could already do because of the genetic procedure. He wasn't learning telepathy, he was learning how to aim it.
And in this intense, weird environment, he notices something. A small detail.
Yeah, this is a great little spy story moment, the white van mystery. He sees this white van in the parking lot every day and notices a specific dent in it. It's a tiny crack in his perfect controlled routine, so he decides to follow it.
And where does it lead him?
It leads him to a business in a town called Linthicum that specializes in advanced noise cancellation technology. And this sparks a really stunning theory about what that Level 2 black project cover might be.
Because we think of noise cancellation as, for sound, for headphones.
Right. But he theorized it was based on negative phase theory. In physics, you cancel a sound wave by creating another wave that's exactly 180 degrees out of phase. You add them together, 180 minus 180 is 0. Silence.
Okay.
So Sherman speculates, what if they could apply that same theory not to sound, but to electromagnetic energy? What if you could cancel out a light wave or a radar signature?
You'd have the ultimate cloaking device, the perfect cover.
Exactly.
Well,
The white van wasn't just dropping off parts, it was potentially linked to the very technology that was making the entire PPD base invisible, untraceable.
Which brings us to the actual operations. He's moved to PPD base number 1 and then later to base number 2. He's working in a cramped van, a C-van terminal, with a blank black screen for security.
And he gets his PPD code name, Staunch 118.
And he makes contact.
He makes contact. The first gray entity he communicates with, he nicknames Spock.
Because of the logic.
Yeah, the communication was so rigid, so logical, it was just a preamble, his code, 118, and a 5-digit zip code, followed by these long strings of encoded numbers. Pure data.
But then something happens. Something they didn't expect.
He accidentally breaks through to a second level of communication, a different plane. And Spock's reaction is pure surprise. The entity tells him they didn't think it was possible for water humans, that's their term for us, to sustain contact on that higher plane.
And the whole dynamic shifts.
Completely. On this higher plane, the communication is candid, it's informal, it bypasses the whole reporting system. He's actually having conversations.
Then at the second base, PPD base 2, his contact changes.
Right. Spock is replaced by a new entity he nicknames Bones. And Sherman says the mental tapestry of Bones felt less rigid, more human. The emotions were easier to sense, and this is where he learns the most startling things.
Like what? What did Bones reveal?
Well, first, about time travel. Bones said they travel around time and from time, not through it. It's how they cross vast distances. But he said they can't actually witness the past because there's no fixed point to look back from.
That's mind-bending. What about bigger questions, like religion?
Bones' view was that any entity that realizes its own existence has a soul, that all intelligent life comes from the same oneness. It sort of puts humanity and the Greys on the same metaphysical level.
Did they talk about Earth's history?
They did. Bones confirmed they'd visited ancient cultures, the Incas, Mayans, Egyptians, but he said they stopped open contact because modern technology made the risk of global disclosure just too high.
But then the communications took a much darker turn.
A much darker turn. The data went from numbers to pictures and then to what he described as mentally spoken words. He realized he was receiving real-time reports on human abductions.
He was documenting abductions as they happened.
Yes. And the data was standardized, which points right back to a government program. He was logging things like potentiality for recall, residual pain, body normalization, all tied to specific coordinates in the U.S. upstate New York, the Florida Panhandle.
He went from being a communicator to being an accessory.
He felt like he was an animal cornered by the very program he was made for. It led to this intense bitterness, so he tried to get out. He put in a request for an early discharge from the Air Force through all the normal channels.
And it was denied.
Immediately, and that's when the trap really snapped shut. His PPD commander, Captain Gregory, sent him an email and just laid it out. He said because he was part of PDD, he would never be able to leave, not even when his enlistment was up.
He was in for life.
And Schumann said that email solidified my resolve to get out at all costs. He used some other method, one he can't specify for legal reasons, to force a discharge. And the second he did it, PPD just vanished. All contact, all communications just stopped instantly.
So the whole incredible story ends. But he's left with something. A physical remnant of the program.
He is a lifelong seismic sensing ability. Right. He describes it as this deep electrical hum in his head or his ear, a hum that he says he can now correlate with major seismic activity. We're talking 6.7 on the Richter scale or higher anywhere on the planet. He usually feels it within 72 hours before the event.
That's unbelievable.
And he says it was amplified to an almost debilitating level just before the huge 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake.
So let's bring this all back around. The entire reason for Project Preserve Destiny was based on the idea that Earth is in its geological infancy, that a cataclysm is coming that will wipe out all our technology.
Exactly, and they created these communicators, these ICs, for that future. A genetically managed human operating in total secrecy whose own body now seems to function as a planetary geological sensor.
So here's the question for you to think about. If PPD's ultimate goal was to prepare for massive geological instability, how does Sherman's persistent global seismic sensing ability tie into the project's design? Was he just built to talk to aliens, or was that only part of it? Was he also designed to be a living, breathing warning system for the planet itself?